in a massive turnaround at the public broadcaster. SABC News General Manager Patiswa Makhathini has retracted retrenchment letters issued to staff. Now, a standoff between SABC News staff and management was broadcast on the 24-hour news channel just yesterday. Let's take a look.
Sir, you know nothing about journalism and broadcasting. All those corporate things where you come from, that's not where we are in this place. I grew up here. This is my home. I am not going anywhere. Yes. In fact, you must go. Yes. You must go, sir. Yeah. We're not going anywhere. You can't come here and decide. We grew up in this institution. We grew up here in this institution. It is enough, sir. Is this the way that you want to see us? Is this the way you want to see us? Black children who grew up in this organization. Do you know who this is? This is Des, one of the best people we have in this organization. Nobody can run the division in cameras without this woman. This woman, you don't know these people's names, sir. You don't know them. Today, you will know who they are. I will never ever advocate for telling this institution black on air. I would never advocate for that. You came here. We were long here, sir. Long here. Take your structure and go and sort it out. These people are not mad.
Of course, that's our colleague there, Griselda Lewis, going out to bat for her colleagues at the SABC. Let's bring in Justine Limpitlaw, who is an electronic communications legal expert, and she'll talk to us about the current funding model at the SABC. Justine, good morning. Thanks again for your time this morning on the AIM report. Incredible scenes coming from the SABC.
Unbelievable.
Yesterday, Ayanda and I were just discussing the fact that as journalists, we go out to fight for other people. We don't easily fight for ourselves. Incredibly brave there for the newsroom to come together at a time like that.
I disagree.
Do you?
I'm afraid I really do. Incredibly brave, yes, to go and do your jobs. Incredibly important as a news person. And your obligations under not only the broadcasting code but the press code to be able to present all of the sides of the story. I think what you saw there was an absolute cry of anguish and desperation, and it's absolutely awful, the retrenchments that are happening in the media sector, and this is another example of it. But I think, what I saw there was the most extraordinary bullying of Patiswa Makhathini. That wasn't an interview.
Yeah.
That wasn't, what you watched there was not the news being unfurled. To me, it looked like journalists taking advantage of the fact that they are news people to use the public broadcaster for their own job security ends.
Yeah.
And I just want to talk about these retrenchment issues. One of the things that Griselda was saying there was, I grew up in this institution. This is my home. I'm not going anywhere. There is a complete, I have a lot of respect for Griselda, but that kind of statement is completely out of place at a publicly funded institution. As an employee, you don't get to say, I grew up here, so nothing can happen to me from a workplace, labor law point of view. There have been many, many statements that the retrenchments that are happening are illegal, that they're unlawful, that there hasn't been sufficient consultation. My understanding, and obviously I'm not in the institution, but watching from the outside, I've seen statement after statement about how the CCMA has been involved in the retrenchments process, as it has to. On more than a statutory minimum number of occasions. I haven't seen any labour law cases being brought by the unions or by staff-facing retrenchments that are saying that this process is being done in a way that's illegal. If it's happening illegally, why isn't that? Why aren't we seeing those cases?
Well, the issue I think that was brought up yesterday, Justine, is that the letters were issued to employees before the restructuring process had been finalized.
But are you talking about the newsroom employees or all employees? Because, of course, the newsroom employees are talking about the newsroom.
Yes,
they're not talking about all the other retrenchments. Yeah. What seems to have touched a nerve, and certainly what made its way onto our television screens last night, was the newsroom employees, those that are directly and personally affected. Yeah. If there's a suggestion that you have to finish the restructuring before you do retrenchments, I think that's fatuous. There's no requirement for that in the Labour Relations Act. My understanding is that management set out its proposed new structure. That new structure addresses what is absolutely clearly, as is the case in so many of our public institutions. There are SOEs such as Janelle, Eskom, etc., that are overstaffed, frankly. Initially, as I recall, they were talking about over 800 retrenchments at the SABC. This is now down to 400. And as a result of restructuring, there's going to be another, I think it is 130 being able to be employed elsewhere. So effectively, I think it's 270 people across the institution, obviously not just in the newsroom, who are facing retrenchment. Yeah. And can I just say, Michelle, you can't have it both ways. You can't watch Zondo day after day after day where the boards of public institutions take absolutely zero responsibility for what is happening in their institutions financially, and then say to the SABC, I heard before the break you were talking about their annual report released yesterday with their financials, who are still obviously in an enormously precarious situation, made much worse by COVID. They're actually, board and management are having a look at this and saying, this is what we need to do. Yep. They've gone through the legal process, they've had the skills audit, and now somehow it's brave to resist a public institution taking responsibility for seeing its way back into not being a loss-making drain on the public purse. I'm at a loss to understand why this line is being taken. Yeah, frankly.
Justine, I want to just stay with you on this issue around what was an emotional day at the SABC. Sure. For employees who said, that they had worked through the COVID-19 pandemic, they had spent time in hospitals, they themselves been impacted by the virus in the work that they were doing for the public broadcaster. And after the year that all of us have had here in South Africa and around the world, now there's talk of job losses. I mean, are you saying
that? I'm sorry, that is just not true. The SABC management and board tried to do these retrenchments, and let's not forget, these retrenchments are required by the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee in their ad hoc committee on the SABC. They specifically said that irregularly appointed people, including some journalists, it must be said, that were made during the cloudy era had to be sorted out. Yeah. Parliament's required retrenchments and the National Treasury's required retrenchments as a precondition to the bailout. The SABC wanted to do it in 2018, board and management. The then powers that be refused to allow that to happen, but said, no, you've got to take all of these steps, including the skills audit. Well, here we are. I would just point out, though, that the SABC did not, unlike other media outlets, did not require their staff to work for no or less pay during COVID-19. And media workers, it isn't just SABC workers, all media workers are emergency workers.
Yeah.
SABC journalists worked the way that Prime Media workers or Kagiso workers or any of those. And we have seen thousands of retrenchments in the media sector. This is not an unusual... What's happening here is absolutely awful for the staff. Make no mistake about it. And it's particularly awful that this is now happening through various circumstances in the second half of November with Christmas looming. It's awful, but
Justine,
it's not
unusual. Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. And I also want to talk to you about the fact that, you know, it's a discussion that I think was also emerging yesterday on social media. The issue around, you know, one of the things that emerged in light of the restructure was, just as one example, the issue around leave days for permanent workers at the SABC in the region of 36 days. We know that leave days for a company is a minus on its balance sheet. That's just one example of the kind of, you know, it's been called a gravy train that's been happening at the SABC.
But we know this in the cloudy era, and it doesn't take an institution a matter of weeks and months to recover from the state capture enterprise. It takes years. We're in the heart of it right now. This is a critical moment for the SABC. It either fixes itself so that it can deliver on the public mandate, or it doesn't. And I just want to say, Michelle, it's terribly important that people understand the wage bill at the SABC is over 40% of its spend. You have a look at DSTV, which is the broadcaster that this channel is on. Their wage bill is at 11%. ETV's is at 15%. They spend more on content, which is obviously what a broadcaster is supposed to be in the business of, than they do on salaries. At the SABC, that is absolutely turned around. The SABC is spending 11 to 15%, 18% on content, and this huge amount on salaries that were inflated often, not just on the numbers of people that exploded during the cloudy era, but the increases that just bear no relation to the rest of us. I mean, Michelle, do you get, you know, sick leave days and holiday leave days that are way in excess of the industry standard? SABC does.
Justine, thank you. Thank you for your time this morning. We're out of time. We're actually over time, but thank you, as always, for coming on and giving us a more sobering view of what's going on in the media landscape. That's Justine Limpitlaw. She is an electronic communications legal expert. Difficult conversations happening at the public broadcaster.